Thanks for checking out my video. If you want to learn more from me, I have a lot of classes on Udemy. You can find the links to a lot of those in the description. Alright, so this is the second video that I'm making today, but as of right now, I wanted to talk a little bit more about evocation, invocation, spirit communication, working with spirits, stuff like that. This is a very common question that I get when it comes to the emails and the comments and things like that. And even my Patreon supporters and my one-on-one people, I always get somebody that asks about working with spirits and how do I know that I'm like hearing them and how do I open up communication with them and stuff like that. Hopefully this video is recording properly because I'm uploading another one. I'm uploading an early release to Patreon right now, and I'm processing one that's going to go up on YouTube, which is available for members the second it uploads. I usually upload a month in advance. But anyways, so one of the biggest things about working with spirits and whether you're doing the Goetia stuff, Simon Necronomicon stuff, you're doing some shamanism stuff and communicating with spirits or calling upon them, how do you know that you're hearing them? What kind of different levels are we talking about? And yeah, I'm going to kind of split it up into different levels. What you got to think of is the ease of communication. So I'm going to probably do some allegorical stuff or comparing it with different things like how you would talk to a friend or a family member, and then even some technology stuff. So now, the easiest way that we would communicate with a particular spirit is, of course, working with some type of invocation, some type of sigil, and calling to them, whether you're doing a prayer or you're doing a big evocation ritual or something like that. Sorry, a cat was jumping on my phone. But so if you're a beginner with sigil magic and you're working the Goetia or the Simon Necronomicon or the Fragments of Nurgak or even angel sigils or what have you, when you are making a prayer or an invocation or a call out to that particular spirit, even if you're out in nature and you're trying to work with the spirits of a particular land area or something like that, when you are communicating with those kinds of spirits, you're the one that's doing the talking. You're saying that you're making an offering, maybe, whether it's incense or candles, or you made a big hierarchy, or, maybe you make like a sand mandala or something like that, and you are asking for, you're declaring your intention, why you made this for them, and then you're asking for something in return. You might not hear anything. The first couple times you work with the 15 Names of Marduk or the Goetic spirits or what have you, even in the big, complicated, um, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? The Ars Goetia ritual, stuff like that. When you invoke a spirit and you give it a directive and then a license to depart, you might not hear anything, you might not see anything, you might not smell anything, you might not sense anything, whatever. You have to go with the notion and the idea that the particular spirit heard you, that they were there and they got your message. You know, it's like if you text somebody, you know that they're eventually gonna you're hoping that they're eventually gonna get it. If you send an email off to somebody, then you're like, okay, they'll get this message later. Same thing with a Facebook message, or you call somebody, you it says that the the phone call picked up and you see the little time ticker start going, but you can't hear them. You're like, hey, just to let you know, I can't hear you, but blah 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 blah, and then the phone call drops, or you don't know if they heard you, you can't hear them, whatever, you hang up, right? So that being the case, that's your first level of evocation or invocation or what have you, working with spirits, right? Now, the more and more and more that you do this, it's like you're tuning a radio dial. You got one of those old school TVs with rabbit ears that you're moving around trying to get a signal, So you might get a signal that goes in and out. Where if you're doing an invocation or something, you might feel a presence. You might feel a temperature change in the room. You might feel or sense, like temperature changes or even smell something, or you might get that stuffy elevator feeling, or you might just feel the presence of someone there. That's another level. And of course, you might talk to them. and, give your offering, your statement of intent, your direction, your license to depart, and all that stuff. That those different sensations from like smelling something, hearing something, feeling something, whatever, you know, those might vary a little bit over the course of your ritual that you're doing. And that's good. Shows you're a level up from what I previously talked about. And in that case, those different sensations, you kind of got to trust that. Even if, this is where you got to have that suspension of disbelief. Anytime that you're starting to work with magic and whatnot, you got to have that suspension of disbelief. Because if you walk into this like, I want something, magic is only real if I can read this book and then I see something across the room. You got to build muscles. That's like saying that you think that the gym will only work if you can walk in there and lift 410 pounds bench press. It's not going to work that way. Your magical abilities are like a muscle. You might start with 5-pound weights and then you can eventually work your way up to 410-pound bench press. I actually worked with a guy who could do that. It's crazy. But you have to start somewhere. And believing that what you're doing is going to get you somewhere, and then any of the impressions and other things are real, that's what you want, right? So when you're working invocations and evocations and working with spirits, me and my lady talked about this in one of our live streams, where when we're doing offerings and other things, when we're out in nature working with different spirits and stuff, the wind picks up at certain points, which is only coincidental, or it can seem coincidental, right? Like when we finish a prayer, when we're in the middle of a prayer, when we make an offering or something, the wind always picks up. Or you might have a random you know a random noise that happens, like we're down at a lake, and after you make a prayer and stuff like that, you hear a fish slap the water, like a carp jumping or something like that. And those are the synchronicities. Those are the indications, because the spirits try to communicate through with us through things that are arguably easier. Spirits are almost like introverts in a way, where I would much rather send a text message than be on a phone call, right? Why? Takes less energy, doesn't it? Right? So if you call me, I'm just going to stare at the phone and I'm wondering why you didn't text me. But so you got to understand that these little synchronicities and things like the wind or a rock moving or something happening in like the water or random noises. I remember D.H. Thorne talks about how he's doing an invocation, and when he does a big important thing, a train horn happens to go off, and synchronicity with that kind of stuff. Or when I was working one of the 50 names of Marduk spells, and there was a super loud crash in the hallway behind me, which had no real world physical explanation. Those kinds of things is spirit doing something, pushing a little domino in the physical world to say, hey, I heard you, hey, I'm here, or they're responding to your question, right? So there's that. Then another thing that can happen is you might get impressions. You might get a random flash or a vision of something. It could be a symbol, could be a color, could be some random thing. The thing is, you'll train your mind through meditation and whatnot to be able to recognize, this is my thought and this is not my thought. This is coming from inside here and this is coming from somewhere else. The more that you work with meditation, which is why I stress it in every single one of my Udemy classes down there in the link tree if you want to check those out, that meditation is very, very important, because you're tuning your antenna, you're moving those bunny ears, you're turning that radio dial, right? And when you're getting these different visions and impressions and things like that, which can come much easier if you're experienced with deep meditations and journeys into other realms and whatnot, then these kinds of things are the ways that spirit can communicate to us. Think of it this way. I send you a picture. That's an instant thing of what I'm trying to talk about. Rather than writing a couple of words about describing something, I could literally send you a picture. So the spirits might send you a vision rather than talking to you with words. And arguably, I would like to say, at least my opinion, that it's much easier for a spirit to send you like a picture or a vision of something rather than going through your linguistic channels, because our brains, more subconsciously, this is why it happens when we dream, we see stuff, right? your brain works with symbols and images and whatnot before language. Language is more of a higher level thing, right? So that's why dogs and cats and other pets are more like visual and stuff. Sure, you can get them to learn words, but that's a lot harder than they see a cat food can. What are they going to think? When one of my cats sees peanut butter, what does she think? She doesn't know the word peanut butter, but she sure as hell knows what what peanut butter looks like. So she'll go nuts. Or even, different smells and things like that with the way that spirits communicate. I had a cat that freaking loved broccoli. And whenever she smelt it, she came over and she went bonkers waiting for it to be done. Anyways, so we talked about the journeying with the visions and other things like that. Then the next level up is hearing something. I'm not talking about hearing it like you're hearing me right now. I'm talking about those thoughts that come into your mind that are not you. You can tell that they're not you, maybe because it's something you would have never thought of before, or it just has a different flavor. It has a different mind voice in there that comes out of left field, and it gives you a message. I've had communication with the spirit of the lake out back, that it came out of left field, and it was just this sentence that had a different flavor. If you sit and meditate and you think about, and this is weird because you're not hearing it with your ears, what does your inner voice sound like? Does it sound like your voice that you use when you're talking out loud? Does it talk different? Get an idea of what that is, because that will help you to discern me, not me, me, something else. And the more and more that you get in tune with spirits, right, the more that you'll be able to hear them not only in ritual, but a level above that is outside of ritual space, particularly if you're going to go out and you're going to work with nature and different things like that. And I know I keep harping on that kind of stuff because me and my lady are actually opening up the possibility for apprenticeships with the shamanism and working with nature spirits and even building mesas / quipus and things like that. Shoot me an email if you're interested. So, we have the difference in mind voice with spirits sending us ideas, words, sentences. Could start as words. Could start as prepackaged ideas. Or if you're into tulpomancy, that's technically called tulpish, but I'm not going to go into that here because that's more of a niche thing that I also do have videos on and whatnot, and I can teach you about that stuff too. Let me know. I have a class on Udemy on that too. But so a level above hearing it in here is audibly hearing it out here. If you think about it, it would be a lot less energetic and a lot less costly for a spirit to communicate and send you a thought, because it just plays around with your energy to create that thought, right? Versus moving something in the physical world. Arguably, air is super easy to move because it's a domino, one molecule to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. But, you can have very powerful spirits and whatnot, especially if you raise enough energy and whatnot, and they can kind of feed off. You are feeding off the universal energy, you're focusing it, and then that spirit is able to feed off of that energy coming out of you because you are the conduit, and they're able to blow a candle out. They're able to knock something off of a shelf, something like that. And then, you can also, in meditation and journeying, you can even see the spirits because they're able to manipulate that kind of energy while you are out in the different realms and whatnot. And they can create a form and show up in that way. And then another level above that, in ritual and whatnot, if you are a proper conduit and you're raising enough energy and you have enough focus and whatnot, they can physically manifest and appear. I have a friend who he did my tattoos, and he was part of the Temple of Psychic Youth, and he has gone through a ton of different magical experiences and stuff like that. He actually had an instance where he had a friend trapped a spirit inside a corner, or in a corner of one of the rooms of the place that he was living at. You couldn't see this thing, but it would bump around and make all sorts of noise and whatnot. So, it's manifesting physically by being able to manipulate the physical world. But, it's still not at that level where it can be seen, because it would much rather spend its energy on making a ruckus saying, hey, I'm trapped, let me out, rather than putting in that extra energy to make a physical form when it would just be doing the same thing, bumping around, hey, I'm trapped, let me out, right? So you got to think about, like, I had the perfect analogy stuff for this the other day and I didn't take enough notes on it. But if you think about it, sending a text is pretty easy, doesn't take that much energy. Then being on a phone, when you have to pay attention and all that stuff, takes much, 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 much more energy than that. Then you're on a video call, takes even more energy and attention and focus and stuff like that. So, and then arguably, especially if you're an introvert, so let me know if you can relate to this down in the comments, being in the same room as someone takes a lot more energy even than being on a FaceTime with someone, partially because there's an out. Hey, I gotta go by, boop, right? So you have your sendings of thoughts, impressions, emotions, and ideas, feeling and presence. Then you have the insertion of thoughts, ideas, and visions and stuff like that. Then you can have the physical manifestations of moving things around. Then you can have the fully physical manifestation of a spirit that shows up in the room. You know, these are different levels. In the same way of communicating with somebody can be voice memo, text, phone call, video chat, or in person. See, the different levels of interacting with people take different amounts of energies, and it's no different from working with spirits. And the more that you attune yourself to this kind of stuff, then the easier it's going to be to advance in those different levels. I mean, I've been working with this stuff since like 2007, 2008, and I've only had a couple of instances of physically manifested spirits, right? And that's probably because my proclivity and my skill is more in like the hearing them and tuning it into them. Now, this could be an individual skill kind of thing, or it could be a proclivity kind of thing. Some people are good at this and some people are good at that. Some people are very, very good at, A, B, or C. Maybe I'm only good at A, and someone else who can physically manifest the spirit and see them in the room, blah, blah, blah. Maybe that's their skill set. That's how their own energy can attune to them and work with them. Great. Does that mean that one is more or less effective than the other? Arguably no, because you can still communicate with the spirit and still get stuff done. And you can build a relationship with them. You can have them help you out, stuff like that. But if you are stepping into magic and saying, "Hey, this stuff is only real if I can see it as real as I can see you on the camera," or it's only good enough and it's only real if something looks as solid as my cat does. Well, you're setting yourself up for a conditional, and that's going to take years and years and years of study and practice and whatnot. So go with the continuum of how things are supposed to work and trust in the process. Anyways, if you like this video, drop it a like, subscribe if you haven't, because I do magic stuff all the time, every week. Check my playlist out for even more stuff on this. Check my link tree for more learning opportunities like my books and my classes. Anyways, I'll catch you next time. Good hunting.